sneaky suspicion that we're going to be light on participants today. And I say that probably for a couple of reasons. One being, I think that, I don't know, we're just kind of jumping around on times. We're a little bit earlier today than we normally would be. I think the other reason we may be short on a few people being with us, and let me reach up here and turn that camera on. I can't turn that camera on. I'm having some issues. Stay with me here as I reach up and I have to make a few adjustments. Ooh, try not to make you seasick while I move things around here. But hey, live stream is just what it says. This is a live stream. So now that you can see my tie and my coffee cup, maybe I should tilt things up so you can actually see me. I'm sorry, my camera battery, I'm having a problem with it. Second day in a row that it's gone dead on me. I will work on making sure, that doesn't. So what I'm having to do is I'm having to take my second camera and make some adjustments to make it work. There you go. So here we are. All right. So that being said, I apologize for all that. But what I was saying was, I can imagine we're going to be a little light on people this morning because a lot of folks are going to be up and going quickly. And a lot of folks are probably also watching the inauguration. I know all the people who, I didn't vote for him. I'm not going to. To me, the inauguration, I've watched a lot of people come into office and take, that transition of power that I didn't necessarily vote for, but it was the fact that it's our democracy at work. It's how it functions, It's how it was set up, is that when one person loses an election, then another person comes in, and it's pomp and circumstance. About as big as it gets. I mean, don't you remember all of the times I do as a kid watching the ceremony that was the inauguration? Sure, whether it was, Ronald Reagan or even as a kid, say watching, I guess the first one, Carter I remember very, very well because I was a teenager by then and was voting by then. First time, but I do remember the inauguration and then of course all those moving forward, and I've had the pleasure to cover a lot of these. I've been to national conventions, and it's just a part of what we see as our government and the way our government works. So I think a lot of people will probably be watching, and I think there's kind of this strange interest in watching the inaugural coverage today, kind of a perverse, will anything happen, which is kind of sad. But I think it's probably true. There are a lot of people that will watch to say, is anything really going to happen today? And all eyes on the nation's capital. We are too. In fact, the morning show ended a bit early today, prematurely, because our coverage started about 6 a.m. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Gresham. After all of that, and again, I apologize for the camera issue, but after all that, here we are at home in our studio. Just thankful that we have multiple cameras this morning that we can go to. Hey, remember that you have the option this morning to comment if you want. If you want to jump in, tell us you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you this morning. You can also make a comment about something that we've talked about or something we haven't. And you just say, this is something you should be talking about or something that I want you to address or a story that you missed. All of those things, fair game this morning. Let me remove this and we can check and see who is up and watching with us this morning. Coffee Landry is here. Hi, Faye. Good to see you this morning. Mary, always a pleasure. Becky Millsap, nice to have you up this morning. Nita Lawless is here. So is Barbara Jacob. Sheila Bird, good morning to you. Denise Thomas is up with us this morning as well. Hi, Whitney. Hope your day is going well so far. Linda is here this morning. Tracy Hall says, any info on Texit? I'm not sure exactly what Texit is. Am I showing my ignorance by saying that? But I'm not sure. And maybe if you kind of point me in the direction, I may go, oh, okay. But no. All right, Angela, good morning. Kevin, good morning to you. Hope everything is well. Kevin's nickname, can I say it, Kevin? Uncle June. Good to have you with us this morning. Miss you. Sonia Matthew used to work with Kevin. and he is not with us. Sonia, good morning. Dixie, good morning. Also, Monique is up with us this morning. Adam, good morning to you, sir. Hope the day is starting well. Monique is watching in Graham, Texas. Adam, good morning. Chrissy, good morning. Kelly Morris is up this morning. Hi, Kelly. Also, Cardine Schultz is with us this morning. Georgia Alton is up with us this morning. So a lot of folks dropping by, and we thank you for spending. I always say it every day because I really do mean it. It's an investment. You make an investment, I make an investment. I invest my time, you invest your time, and here we are together creating a community online. It's Facebook, but it's also available on YouTube, Instagram. We're moving to a lot of different platforms so you can catch up with us in a lot of different places. All right, let's get to it this morning. A lot going on. First stop, always, we like to take you to KFDM.com. Why? Because that's where you can find out what's happening in your headlines, right? You can see that President Trump has left the White House. If you have not been following the coverage this morning, he boarded Air Force One and departed about 8 o'clock our time. It is now on his way to Florida. In the meantime, the Bidens, along with the second family, have now gone to a church service prior to the inaugural ceremony, which will take place about 11 o'clock our time this morning. And again, coverage everywhere you go. There's no channel, it seems like, that you can turn on right now. Social media that's not covering the inauguration and something that's going on with the inauguration. And it'll be a day full of events. It always is. Now, that being said, this is going to be a very different inauguration. You think about all the things that, were already in place. You had a pandemic, which was restricting things. Then you add into that the events of January 6th. That obviously changed the landscape. Then you follow all of the social media chatter that was going on about potential protest and violence, and that could happen on the 20th. So that changed things to the point that you have 25,000 National Guardsmen, along with all the other law enforcement that would be there anyway, in the middle of the nation's capital. And what would normally be a very crowded city, if you've ever been in the nation's capital when an event is going on, it's almost hard to even get on to the metro, which is what they call the subway there, and to get off, because there are so many people packed in trying to take. Not today. Today there are empty streets. Today there are streets in our nation's capitals that are blocked by Humvees that you can't go down, which is almost surreal. But the inauguration goes on. It will be very different, but transfer of power takes place, as we have done in this country for 200 years. We are doing again. I had an interesting conversation today. I was talking with Dana Malossa on the morning show I was asking how cold it was in Washington, D.C. 42 degrees. And he was like, well, that sounds cold. I said, oh, no. If you look back in history, we have had inaugurations where there were, it was like 10 degrees, 17 degrees. So, can you imagine? This is what I always think of when I think of all the pomp and circumstance and all the tradition that goes into parades. Are a big part of any party's inauguration. They were with President Trump when he came in 4 years ago. Playing, I always think of the guy, 17 degrees. What must it feel like when you put your lips to that trombone to play it? I would think that, when you try to take your mouth off that thing, it would just go with you. That might be frozen onto that. But they do. They will play on. And again, the ceremonies will go on. But many of them will be virtual today, and it will be much different. But the end result, at the end of the day, at 11:01 or whatever, shortly thereafter, after the president is, again, the transfer of power from one to another. It's interesting because even though, a lot of us have not seen dozens of inaugurations, we have seen numerous inaugurations, and just the changing of the guard from one party to the other party, this one will be different. I don't think there's much argument about that. This one will be different. All right, so that being said, let's bring it down to a local level, find out what might be of interest to you today. a couple of things that I think that we should be paying attention to. One is the fact that both the city and the county are now talking about, let me get that out of the way. The city and the county are now talking about vaccine hubs and where they're going to be moving forward. There is a plan in place. Becky Ames tells us that the Civic Center will be a future vaccine hub site. And the county says it has a plan it's working on. They have not said specifically where they will be setting up for mass evacuations, but it becomes obvious that they are planning for that. The only hitch in the whole problem, the whole situation, is the fact there aren't any vaccines. You know, you read the line, it says, once enough vaccines arrive. Well, apparently we're being told there aren't a lot of vaccines to be had at this point. And if you look, this is the map that I tell you about that is from the DSHS here in the state of Texas, where you can go and see vaccine availability. Let me back it up one page for you. You can go to this page from Texas Health and Human Services. And if you go down, it talks about vaccines in the state of Texas. And then it shows you vaccine hub providers and vaccine availability maps. And when you go to these, it's going to ask you, where. So we'll just put in, for the sake of ease, Beaumont. And as we put in Beaumont, it's going to bring up all the providers, vaccine providers in Beaumont. For example, Baptist Hospital, and it will tell you total shipped 4,000. It says here they have 2,595 doses available of Pfizer. Now, whether that's true, who's on the waiting list, how you get one of those, that, to me, is where the disconnect is between people who have vaccines and people who are wanting vaccines. Now, you can go to other places and you'll see 100 shipped, but you see they have no doses of Pfizer, 78 of Moderna. But again, those may be holding those back for specific people. You have to be right in the phase 1 or 1B to even be eligible for a vaccine. But the problem that I hear from the majority of the people who are interested in getting vaccines is the inability to find them. Yes, you're going to know people who got them. And yes, you're going to have a lot of people who are saying, how did they and I didn't? What do I have to do if I want to get one? Understandably, not everybody is on board with getting a vaccine, but those who want it, which seems to be an increasing number if you look statistically, if you look at surveys, the acceptance of the COVID-19 vaccine has been growing since the initial rollout. And now we have 2 more vaccines that are expected very soon. Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca are both expected to go to the FDA and try to get approval, at least temporary emergency approval, in a very short time window here. And if that happens, then suddenly you should have more vaccines. Hopefully that is the case. And for those who do, will. But again, it could be slow going. The way this has been rolled out, and again, just to me, the inability to communicate the plan and how we as individuals can take advantage of it. That to me is something that, I can't get past. I can't figure out exactly what it is I'm supposed to be. I'm on a list. I'm on a waiting list at a certain place. How long is it going to be before they call you? Before you can actually get it. All right. Another story I think will be of interest because it affects everybody that drives in the city of Beaumont is that the Beaumont City Council has approved lowering the speed limit on portions of Major Drive. City Council approved the reducing of the speed limit from 60 to 50 on Major Drive from Tram to Folsom Road. And the city approved other speed limit reductions on stretches of Major Drive from Folsom to I-10. But the city hasn't said when those changes are going to go into effect. You like the idea or dislike the idea of those changes? I would think there'd probably be some people who would probably be willing to argue with you that major drive, the idea that it's 55 in some parts out there by the Municipal Tennis Center, out there by the softball fields, in that general area, Dowling, Langham, that some people would argue that's too fast there. But speed limits are only as good in our day and age, don't you think, as enforcement. I-10's a great example. You can say the speed limit is 75, but if you go 75 when you're on the interstate, there's a good chance that you're going to be passed by a lot of people. Because again, it's only as good as the enforcement or the people driving who feel like they're honor bound to obey the sign. And obviously none of people feel that way. So I'm not sure if 60 will actually have an effect on that road, but I understand what they're saying, especially people coming off a Village trying to turn left onto Major Drive. And if you're not familiar with Beaumont, it's a very, very busy highway. You know, because it is a highway. That's Highway 90, essentially. You can call it Major, but it's Highway 90. And you've got a lot of people going both directions, high volume, and trying to turn left, going across 2 lanes, 3 lanes of traffic to try to turn the opposite direction without a light. A lot of people just give up and go the other direction because you're never going to get across there. But I think, would agree there are a lot of places and a lot of streets and a lot of cross streets you could point to in any city where you would say, we need better traffic control. We'll see. We'll see what this does. We'll see how it affects the flow of traffic. I want to come back to the vaccine one more time because I thought this was an interesting story too, where companies are now saying they will pay their workers to get a vaccine. This is the business pages from CNN. And you see right there, Trader Joe's and others will pay workers to get a vaccine. Growing number of large U.S. chains offering workers incentives to get COVID-19 vaccines. Grocery stores, they're going to say, we'll pay you 2 hours to get a dose and 2 hours more if you get the second dose. Dollar General, Trader Joe's, Instacart, among others who have also made that decision that they will pay people to do that as an incentive to get it. But on the other side of that coin, I have not read many stories about companies who are mandating that their employees get the vaccine. If you don't get the vaccine, you can't work for them. I haven't seen many of those. Now, the incentive stories we're seeing more and more of. Hey, do me a favor, if you don't mind this morning, if you get a chance, if you'd give me a like, that's the thumbs up. It would be appreciated. And of course, if you don't like me, then you can also give me the sad face or the mad face, whichever one you want to give. That's fine too. And I will pass those along to the powers that be so that we can continue doing our morning updates and just kind of show them how popular they really are here in Southeast Texas, or maybe unpopular. Either way, let me know. It's always just good to have input. And of course, your comments on the side, I continue reading them, always do. Let me see what we got up here this morning real quick that we can check on a couple of more. Not everybody's real happy with my comments apparently about watching I still think, as much as, you may not like the idea, it is still a tradition in this country that we have inaugurations. That's how it works. Tammy Fogarty says, good morning from Fort Neches. Tracy Hall. Okay, I didn't get her Texit comment is like Brexit, where England left the Union and became and wait till you see what happens post-Brexit there, Tracy. I think it's going to be interesting. It's just starting to happen. So the idea being that Texas would succeed from the Union, which I don't think there's a lot of talk, but could that ever really happen, I guess, is the question. Virginia Knowles, good morning to you. Shay Spooner says good morning. Debbie Trahan, good morning to you as well. Kyle says good morning. We as Texas want to become our own country. You ever thought about the practicality of that, though, Kyle? What comes with that? What would really, if you really meant that you wanted to do that, what would have to happen logistically? What you would lose, what you would gain? I don't know that I've really probably dove into that deep enough to know everything, but I'm just curious what it would be. Tammy, good morning to you over in Lumberton. Renee is up with us this morning as well. So is Christian. And who else? Susan Guidry is up with us this morning. Okay, Frankie Bass says she'll be watching anything but the inauguration. All right. Melissa Carter says she's going to be washing her hair. Gotcha. Tommy Bolton, good morning to you in Port Arthur. Also this morning, Coffee Landry says good morning. Carlene Purdue is here with us this morning. Thelma's here this morning. Alton Anderson, who's going to vaccine the millions Biden is letting in at the border? That will be part, and listen, you're going to hear a lot about executive orders over the course of the next 24 hours. Please remember, this is not exclusive to Joe Biden. Donald Trump, when he walked into the White House, he also started doing executive orders. And historically speaking, if you look back, that is something that all presidents do. We should be used to the vacillating thing that happens. I don't like yours, I'll take it away. That happens every 4 years. Okay, also, Marie Jackson, good morning to you. George says he got his vaccine last Thursday. Well, good for you. Again, it's a personal preference thing. If you want it, you want it. If you don't want it, it's not hard to avoid, right? Good morning, Dan from Viter. Blue shirt looks nice. Well, thank you, Jeannie Foster. Also, Jennifer Joannifer Doucette says good morning. Chelsea Russell says we are all equal. Kyle says lowering the speed limit still not going to do any good. Jeannie Foster. And again, you can only enforce it so much. Then it becomes up to the individuals, doesn't it, Kyle, to be the ones who actually enact it? Because I don't care how many people, how many officers you put out on the streets, you still got more cars than you got cops. You still have more people driving than you're going to have people who, you don't have the time and or the money to sit out there and stop every single one who is above the speed limit. If you did that on the interstate, if you stopped every single person who was speeding, and this is true as I do, if you've driven to Houston, if you've gone to Baton Rouge, to Lake Charles, it would be such a shutdown, it would just stop all movement, period. Now, what's kind of interesting in some states, they don't bother to stop you. They just send you a ticket in the mail. You pass by, a certain post on the side of the road, or you go underneath one of those overhead signs, and they have the cameras, and it's a posted speed limit. And then, 3 weeks later, you get a little notice in the mail with your picture and your license plate and the speed you were going. That enforcement would probably, wouldn't it? Slow people down, you think? Maybe not. David McPeak says, we always like your comments here, Dan. Nita and I watch you nearly every morning. Well, I thank you, David. I don't expect everyone to agree with my comments, but it's always nice to see some people who just appreciate the fact that we have the discussion. And let me take that and move forward one step before we go this morning, because I think this is a real important thing to talk about. And today is a good day, I think, to talk about it. And it's this, that isn't it important that when we have discord and when we have discussion and when we have, even if you want to go as far as calling it debate, that we hear different points of view? If all you do is try to find like-minded commentary, conversation, news reporting, how do you broaden your knowledge base? If all you want is somebody that agrees with you, if all you want is somebody to tell you you're right, then how do we get perspective? That's what I've never quite understood. That it's easy to go, yeah, I'll only watch this because I agree with them. To me, that's too easy. Aren't we, what's the old saying? We're sharpened, as steel, you're sharpened by, the file. As steel, you're hardened by fire. If you don't look at a different perspective, if you don't listen to somebody that doesn't agree with you, but if it doesn't do any good if you do that, and if you listen with anger, I think that's beside the point. If you're listening with anger the whole time, all you're doing is yelling at the television, then you're probably not hearing what they're saying. And that doesn't matter if you're talking about politics, if you're talking about sports, if you're talking about theology. If you don't at least have an open, eye, an open acceptance of, okay, I'm going to at least hear what this is, measure it against what I think or believe, and move forward without having to pull out knives or guns because you don't agree with each other. Somewhere along the way, it seems like we've kind of lost that ability to do that. So I guess what I'm saying today, on these days of days, when you're seeing a transition of power and you don't like what's happening, to at least look at it and see, okay, let me see if I'm not just going to watch CNN, or I'm not just going to watch Fox, or I'm not just going to watch Axios, or I'm not just going to watch CNBC. I'm going to tune it around. I'm going to try to find people that are talking about different things from different perspectives. And if I don't agree with them, then that's okay. And if I do agree with them, I don't necessarily have to go yelling about that either. I'm just saying, it's one of those days. I think it's good to remember that, taking things from a different perspective is okay. I want to just remind you again, send a comment if you'd like. Also, that if you have something you would like to hear us talk about, you certainly can, but you have to let us know. Also, the reminder, too, we never like to leave without sharing something that's not news, hardcore news, even observations. And here's one. All my fellow Astro fans, this is going to break your heart if you haven't seen it already. And that is, I'm not sure if I have that's the wrong story. Let me bring this one up right here. George Springer leaving Astros to sign with Blue Jays. Yeah, I'm afraid it's true. No more Springer dingers inside Minute Maid Park. George Springer has agreed to a 6-year, $150 million contract with the Toronto Blue Jays. As much as I'm an Astros fan going way back, it's kind of hard to argue with $150 million. But, and again, a lot of folks are going to be crying in their milk about this one. But it was his chance to cash in as a free agent. And again, kind of hard to blame anybody for improving their situation. And to them, it is a business. To us, it is a sport. But again, I will be sad. I, for one, will be sad. I like watch George Springer play. I just thought that he was one of those guys that, he never quit. But $150 million, that's a lot of money. We're paying baseball players $150 million. I'm not even going to go to that discussion about shouldn't we be paying researchers that kind of money? Shouldn't we be paying teachers, if it's all in relation? $150 million to play baseball. Again, if you can get it, more power to you, I guess. But I think we should examine our priorities a little bit as a society. All right, let's check out what's going on. Reminder, you can follow what's happening in Southeast Texas a variety of ways. You're doing really good because you're at the place where you can keep up with the news. That's the KFDM Facebook page. But remember, you can also go to KFDM.com. You can check out my Twitter account, which is Morning TV Dan. And if you want, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Dan's at Home, where you can watch these updates every day and also be made aware of the fact that they are happening with alerts if you subscribe. Again, that's at YouTube. All right, I am going to go and watch a little bit of some of the ceremony that's going on because, again, I'm just curious to see how the day goes down. And then we'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning on KFDM and KBTV Fox 4. And then, of course, right here, we'll be back as well. So go enjoy your day. Make the most of it. The weather, again, a little bit overcast, but very unseasonable. We're going to be very warm today. So put on some short sleeves. Get outside the house. Take a walk. Enjoy the day. Carpe diem, right? All right. We'll see you next time. Take care.